And we are back with the wonderful John Higgins.
Hooray! Happy
Johnny Hollywood, as he is officially now known.
Doc Johnny Hollywood.
Doc Johnny Hollywood.
As you know, thank you, Michael J. Fox, for your wonderful thing 30 years ago.
Oh, is he still alive?
Oh yeah, I mean he's
Okay.
you know
Still
he's
kicking.
I mean obviously Parkinson's,
Yeah.
but he's you know he did a great thing last year when he presented the BAFTA for Oppenheimer. But he's a terrific, you know, and his documentary was great.
Oh, okay. Did you see the Superman one?
Yes.
Was it any good?
Yeah.
What was the name of it?
Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, and
Yeah.
I met his daughter.
Oh, right.
There was a Q&A I went to, so they had the
Christopher Reeve's daughter.
Yeah, the son and daughter. So it's an interesting one. I mean, I
Hang on,
thought
where was it?
it was at the Curzon Bloomsbury,
Oh, right.
which is sort of near Russell Square.
And was there a Q&A?
There was a Q&A afterwards. A great thing. I mean,
What's his daughter's name? Do you know?
God,
What was
Alexandra? I think.
Was it after we just bumped into? Or you...
She was there doing a Q&A.
Oh,
so it's I mean it's a testament to how, you know, it's a real testament to how great, you know, his work, you know, his legacy as Superman. I mean, the thing is, you know, he's such a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's the perfect Superman, and I think there's you know, there's a lot of interesting things, and I think the thing about it is we forgot how great a direct actor he was. You know, I mean, one of my favorite scenes is in Superman 3 where he splits personality, and you got the evil Superman and the good Superman.
Right, yeah. Flicking the peanuts.
Flicking the peanuts,
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, you know, Richard Donner said that if he'd been allowed to do the second one the way he wanted to, you know, I mean, the Donner cut of Superman 2 is actually got some interesting things, but it's not as... It's still sort of lags slightly behind, but it sort of is a nice thing to test out what the thing is. So,
What did you say to his daughter?
I just said you know, I think he was such an influential person, and you know, and you'd be very proud of your father.
yeah.
You know, it's just a shame. It's just tragic how it happened. But
What year was it? Did he become Superman?
1978.
Oh, it was late 70s, okay. Yeah, it all clicked in, didn't it? The technology was the right time, he was the right actor, America was at the right place for
The thing about it is I remember the first teaser trailers, and it said, "See it and you'll believe a man can fly."
Yeah.
And then Tiswas showed the clip of the helicopter attack. And he leapt up, and I think, wow, how did they do that?
Amazing, yeah.
You know, but because the thing is, he just leapt up. But the thing is, this is before CGI.
Yeah.
And the shame of it is that I don't think, like, there's a new James Gunn Superman coming out soon, and I did see the trailer. It's got like, you know, it's got the lady from the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Katie. It's Rachel Brosnahan.
Okay, the man.
And she's Lois Lane, so she's following the footsteps. I mean, Margot Kidder is still the greatest.
I saw it quickly. Was it the tone of it? Was it like people have turned against Superman or something like that?
Well, they're trying.
He seemed to be moody and more.
Well, I think the thing is that my problem, I think, with the Superman films that have come since then is the fact that they're always going back to an origin story. That was my big problem with Superman Returns, because the thing is, the first third of that film, up until the shuttle thing, was like, great, we're getting a new Superman.
Oh, right.
Then they recycled things from, you know, the Kryptonite, the Lex Luthor story, and I just thought it just has not done justice to what I think. You know, I don't want an origin story.
What can you remember from the trailer for the new film? What was it going for?
It was. I mean, it's kind of.
Was it minimalist? Did you not?
Well, it's a bit like Wonder Woman. That's the best example of what they've done with the DC universe, and I suppose the Dark Knight stuff. You know,
but as setting up a sort of true and virtuous archetypal hero type, that Wonder Woman movie did very much feel, the first one anyway. Second one was, I didn't understand what was going on, to be honest.
Well, it was about making, you know, it's about making dark wishes and stuff like that.
It was about Trump. It was Trump. It really was. It really was. He was like Mexican Trump.
Right,
Pedro Pascal came out. I was like, "Hi, I'm Latino Trump."
Right.
And like genuinely, it was a nonsense. But that first Wonder Woman movie was about as close as I think we've come for a very long time to that original Superman movies.
But it's that's the thing, is the template is, you know, the Superman the movie is still the template for all the later ones anyway. I mean, I wrote an article about it for Cinema Jam when that was still existing, and I basically said, well, it's the template. You know, even Christopher Nolan has admitted that, you know, he never understood why nobody's done a Batman movie like the original Superman.
So officially, you can destroy all Superman films, but you're allowed to keep one. What are you going to allow the world to have? One Superman film.
Well, it's actually a dual thing because because ultimately Superman 1 and 2 were meant as one film.
Oh, right.
Because they were shot simultaneously. Oh. And the reason is because there was an argument. The famous story is there was an
They were literally filmed.
They were filmed back to back.
Oh, right, okay, right.
Because Richard Donner was directing. What happened was there was an there's a well-documented argument he had with the Salkins and Pierce Spengler. And I think so the story goes, he said, well, I will not work on this film if Spengler's on there.
What did he do?
Pierce Spengler was the producer.
Oh, okay, right.
So it was kind of, the thing about it is they shot them more or less around the same time. So there's a debate about how much of Superman 2 was Richard Lester's film.
Oh, right.
Because Richard Lester actually had worked on The Three Musketeers, which was the films they did before that, 3 and 4 Musketeers.
Right.
So yeah.
So wasn't that like the Poltergeist film where they said it's technically a Spielberg film? Because he was there doing so much
there's
of the
a
work.
there's a whole...
And it filmed it. I thought he'd done it.
No, but the thing is that there was a famous line in Variety saying to be Toby or not Toby, right. Which is because Toby Hooper, and then Spielberg sent a disclaimer. The problem was
because he was the director.
Yeah, but the thing is, it feels like a Spielberg film because of it, but there are dark moments in it. I think that's what I think is great about Poltergeist is that there are very unique Toby Hooper moments in it, and I still think it's a Toby Hooper because Spielberg basically when you consider E.T. came around the same time.
Yeah.
But the problem was I think the Directors Guild of America had certain rules. There's a famous one called the Kaufman ruling, which came about because of Clint Eastwood's Outlaw Josie Wales, because the original director of Outlaw Josie Wales was Philip Kaufman. Then Spielberg fired Kaufman, and actually Eastwood got a fine. Oh. They got a fine because of the Directors Guild of America says you cannot sort of fire a director so it's a complicated history.
Right.
But yeah.
So, but the Superman documentary was good.
Superman documentary was good, yeah.
New stuff came out that you didn't know?
I mean, there was a lot of archive footage, but I think, it's like they had that one over Christmas of from Roger Moore with Love.
Yeah.
With Steve Coogan, the narration, which I thought was fantastic.
He narrated it?
He sort of did his best impression of Roger Moore, which I think I can do by acting. I did meet Roger Moore, actually.
Oh yeah.
When he did it at the old cinema store. He did a signing of his book Last Man Standing, and he's, he was there with his wife. I mean, he had, the thing I remember is he had such like a sort of strong grip, even though he's long. He had one of those. I thought, bloody hell! He's like, but it's Roger Moore. It's fantastic guy, very very charming, and yeah.
Right, so today we're going to talk about your
5 favourite directors. Now,
hang on, before we get to that, something much more important.
Yes,
the new
28 years later,
one of the greatest films ever made.
Okay, so you sort of put me up to this. I had to do a bit of research. So you did,
it's tremendous.
I did some research. This is those of you, if you want to, this is more or less from IMDb, so you know it. Right. Essentially, it's set, apparently from what it said, it's out on June the 20th, 2025. That's the 25 release.
What's it called?
It's called 28 Years Later.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like 28 days.
At least it's set 28 years later then.
It's set 3 decades after, because the trailer, if you look at the trailer, Sony, I've watched the trailer last night.
Yeah, what did you think?
I mean, for me, it sort of reminds me a bit of Day of the Dead, the Romero film. Because essentially they're on an isolated area. In Day of the Dead, they're in a bunker. In 28 Years Later, they're on an island, which just so happens to be connected to the mainland by a causeway. So, of course, a bunch of survivors quarantined, the rage virus, and of course, somebody decides that from what I gather, they get on the causeway and decide to explore the mainland.
Okay, right.
So all hell breaks loose. Good cast. It's got Cillian Murphy from the original.
Oh, he's in it.
Cillian Murphy's in it.
As a main character? Well, it must be.
I think so. Aaron Taylor Johnson.
As him in the 28...
I think so, yeah.
I believe so. There were a lot of rumours going around that he was one of the zombies, because there was a lanky-looking zombie who looked a bit like him. They said, no, that's an actor. Yeah.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's in it. Oh, okay. Ralph Fiennes is in it, and 2 additions. Jack O'Connell, who was Blake Fielder Sybil in the Back to Black film, which I did like. I think I liked the movie. Marisa Rebellas.
Was she Amy?
She was Amy Winehouse.
Oh, she's in that.
Yeah, okay. And also Jodie Comer, who was in a similar kind of film recently called The End We Start From. She plays a mother who's bouncing back. A lot of great visual effects. In terms of the behind the scenes credits, Danny Boyle's back. He's co-written the script with Alex Garland, who did The Beach, and also he directed Ex Machina. Andrew McDonald, who's been Boyle's long-term collaborator since Shallow Grave back in '95. One of my favourite films are there. And Anthony Dodd Mansell, who did the cinematography on cinematography on things like The Last King of Scotland and Slumdog Millionaire. And there's
it's not 28 years since the actual first film, is it?
No.
Oh, I thought that. So
no, I mean it's about 25 because I think 28 days later came about 2000. But
Cillian Murphy, he must be old now then. So he's old. Must be 30 years older.
Well, he's older now. I mean, of course he won the Academy Award for his work as Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer.
Oh right, yeah. Oh, he doesn't look that old then.
Yeah. No, he still looks the same. I mean, he plays like Scarecrow in the Dark Knight, and he's, I think he's become part of the Christopher Nolan, repertory company.
Yeah.
What I was explaining before you came in to Joe about you explained the walk thing. You said it was a poem, and I couldn't remember what I said about the trailer.
The
trailer.
Yes, it's a Kipling poem. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it about?
It's about marching. It's about soldiers marching.
What do they say? Walk.
It's like like they just talk about miles.
Yeah.
It's like 10, 20, 18,
Yeah.
18 today.
I mean, it's. I did notice that. I wondered about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I googled it because I was like, what the hell is that? Because it sounds like one of these weird.
It's like those radio number broadcasts.
Those weird kind of things. Is that MI5 or is this like a radio test?
Right.
So from what I gather, it's actually 75 million budget. So that's actually quite significant from the original film, which they did a really clever thing where they shot something at 5 o'clock in the morning. They closed off like Westminster Bridge.
Yeah.
That was a big
Do
thing.
it in 10-second bursts.
10-second bursts, yeah.
That's that bit with the famous bit. Was
so so that's 28 years later.
How do you get allowed to do that for a first?
Well,
time?
Tom Cruise did it for.
Yeah, but that's not. I mean, you can get away with that.
No,
when
I think what they did was they did a bit of guerrilla filmmaking. Obviously, they stopped the traffic.
There's a little bit of,
and they just said, right, we're going to do a quick shot of Cillian Murphy on the thing, and just did it quietly.
Oh, there was half. Yeah.
You just
a little bit of a.
I mean, funny enough, this is what they did. Do you remember the Piccadilly Circus crash in American Werewolf in London?
Yeah.
Well, Vic Armstrong, this is the interesting thing. They shot that. Vic Armstrong in his biography was the world's greatest. He was talking about the fact that
it's just nighttime as well. So
it was at nighttime. What they did was they planned it at the studio. And then what they did is they stopped the traffic, right, and actually got everything going. So the whole sequence, because Vic Armstrong drives the bus,
the bus,
and then literally within about half an hour of them clearing everything up, the place was open again. Yeah. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, because you got buses, you got a cab going. It's not like
it's the logistics of shooting. I mean, London is tough anyway. So that's bizarre.
Right, well, there you go. So when did that come out?
Comes out 20th of June 2025, according to the UK release on IMDb.
Okay, well, there you go.
Check press for local details.
And he did not have one note for all that. No. You've done as well. So, right, top 5 directors.
Okay, so so before we do this list, I'm going to point out to the disclaimers later on. You will probably find that there are certain directors you're wondering why isn't he going to include that. The point is that I think it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
And what I want people to ponder who listen to this or watch this is sit down and for about 5 minutes, think about your own 5 favorite directors. Who sort of speaks to you in terms of it. My criteria for this was I've picked 5 directors that I think have had such a profound influence. The movies that are kind of, I think there are movies that I've watched and I've had the most enjoyable experience, and they're repeat things, and I think these are the movies that kind of speak to me. So here we go.
But also, I was going to mention this earlier, but yes, it's difficult. I was compare it to music and musical artists. I think that that when you're looking at someone's entire career, it's not always going to be hits. There's going to be a few duffers there. So you can always say, well, I don't know. This person has done this, 4 or 5 classic films, but then they've also done about 5 or 10. Absolute shockers.
Every single person, every single director has a bad moment. Yeah, some people have more than others.
Well, every artist. Okay. It's not.
What about Steven Spielberg? What has he done wrong?
Well, he's done things like 1941, which again he did. This was 1979. This was his follow-up to Close Encounters. It was basically John Belushi. It was a comedy written by Robert
The
Zemeckis.
Alien film?
No. Robert
Third
Zemeckis and Bob Gelly. It was basically about a Japanese invasion of the California coast.
Right,
And it takes the piss out of Jaws at the very beginning. The same person, Susan Blakely. Right. Okay, so this is my top 5. I'm going to kick off at number 5 with Walter Hill.
Right, who's that?
Okay.
So Walter Hill was firstly a screenwriter. He wrote the original 1972 Sam Peckinpah version of The Getaway, which was based on Jim Thompson's book. Peckinpah is not on the list. Again, disclaimer, but he started out as a screenwriter. He then went on to direct things like The Driver, which is Ryan O'Neal and Bruce Dern, which actually, if you watch The Terminator, there are car chases in it. It's a wonderful 1978 film, which is about a driver played by Ryan O'Neal. If you think of Drive with Ryan Gosling, this is a forerunner of that. And essentially, the story is basically, it's about 3 people. There's a driver, which is played by Ryan O'Neal. There's the cop, played by Bruce Dern. And there's the woman in between, played by Isabella Gianni, this was her first American film. And essentially, it's a cat and mouse game. But the thing about it is what makes this film so stylish is the fact that it's the car chases, the night shooting and the incredible intense car chases is what it makes. It's an evidence of style. And the actual, if you watch The Terminator, this is actually one of the key visual influences on it. When you watched it, when
the car chase,
when they're escaping from the Terminator in the car, there's actually a similar kind of thing. It's got a great score by Michael Small, and also it's produced by Lawrence Gordon, so of course Lawrence Gordon went on to do Die Hard and stuff. So this is kind of the first time where the talents crystallized. Frank Marshall, who worked with Spielberg later on, this is another thing. There's a Spielberg connection, which you'll understand. So that's the first film. The second one, The Warriors, the 1979 film.
Oh, he directed that?
He directed The Warriors.
What was his name?
Walter Hill.
Walter Hill, okay.
So, of course, The Warriors was controversial at the time. In America, it was responsible for a number of notorious incidents. There was some shootings on its original release.
Is it a cult film, or at the time was it a well-known film?
It's a well-known film.
No, then.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
cinema released.
I remember watching Nationwide at the time, and they said, "Oh, the British Board of Film Censors has passed this film." And it was like, I remember seeing a sequence where they're being chased on the subway. One of the most famous scenes in it is the baseball furies.
Yeah.
The plot is basically this. The kingpin of gangs in New York, Cyrus, decides to organize...
In what year? It's 1970s.
In 1979.
Yeah.
Decides to organize a mass rally in the Bronx. And then another gang shoots him, and they blame the Warriors. And essentially, it's a chase. It's one long 90-minute chase from the Bronx down to Coney Island. There is some absolutely fantastic violence sequences. If you think of A Clockwork Orange, it's a bit like that. Kubrick is not on the list, just to let you know. But it's kind of like the next thing, gangs, and there's great violent sequences in it. Great score by Barry DeVorzon, and actually the song from the film, which is co-written with Joe Walsh, is In the City, which is an Eagles track, which was in the final album they did, which was the Long Run, the last one. It appears on the album, but it's actually known from there. Great cast: Michael Beck, James Remar, Deborah Van Valkenburg. And they actually have regular Warriors meetups. They had one in Edgbaston in Birmingham. so that what they do is they turn up, like the Comic-Con. They turn up and they do like meet and greets and stuff. David Patrick Kelly, who then appears in 48 Hours as Luther. Again, he plays a character called Luther in The Warriors. So moving on. Walter Hill did Brewster's Millions with John Candy and Richard Pryor. Streets of Fire, which we did touch on in our cult thing, which is the rock and roll fable, is good. Of course, 48 Hours, which is the template for films like Red Heat, Bad Boys, Lethal Weapon. It's got a great score by James Horner. Incidentally, the music for Subway Station appears in the trailer for Commando. Oh. It's great.
The trailer for Commando.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he did also Red Heat, which was on TV the other night, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Belushi. So, again, for me, it's, Walter Hill is such a fantastic director. He kind of has, again, I'm inclined to name him because, again, these movies had such an impact on me. I can watch them again and again. I love watching The Warriors. Frank Marshall was the executive producer on The Warriors, and this was one of the films he did just before he became producer on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay, right.
And Joel Silver was an assistant on The Warriors and The Driver. And then he went on to co-produce and became a producer himself of things like Die Hard, The Matrix, and so on. Last Boy Scout, you name it.
So that's number 5. Who's number 4?
Number 4 is John Badham.
Right, so who's this now?
So John Badham is a great Hollywood director. He was responsible for the likes of Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, director.
Blue Thunder, War Games, Bird on the Wire, Stakeout. A great Johnny Depp real-time thriller called Nick of Time, which sort of came and went, didn't sort of do all the well.
I remember. I was thinking about that the other day.
And it was, and essentially what it is, as I remember, Johnny Depp basically is sort of told to kill somebody, otherwise he kills his daughter. And it's a real-time thing. So over 90 minutes, it's sort of in a mouth.
What year is this, like 80s?
1993. Oh. He also did a film called... he did a film, I think, called Drop Zone with Wesley Snipes, which was about, I think that was the other one I remember, which is the one where they're sort of, it's a bank thing and they're sort of leaping from, they're doing like free falling or
free running.
Free falling, like parachuting.
Oh, right, okay.
He did the Mel Gibson Goldie Hawn comedy thriller Bird on the Wire, which was basically Mel Gibson plays a guy on the witness protection program, and then of course people come after him. David Carradine was in it. Bill Duke was in it.
I don't know the name Bill Duke. Predator.
He was the guy who played. He also played the thug.
The black guy.
Yeah, the black guy.
And Commando.
Right.
I eat green berets for breakfast.
Yeah. Right now I'm very hungry. Of course,
Have you seen interviews with Bill Duke?
Yeah.
Have you seen them when he does interviews about filmmaking?
Yeah.
Genius guy. He's done like multiple interviews like about making
he's
films.
He's a fantastic thing.
Smart. If you Google it, you'll get stuck watching them all night.
He's a fantastic talent. I mean, the thing about it is the image that he gives, because he always plays like he's always playing. He directed a film called The Rage in Harlem a while back. We can't sort of pass John Badham without, of course, talking about Saturday Night Fever, which is, without doubt, as I've said to you in my soundtrack thing, it's the greatest soundtrack. It still is, for my money, one of the best.
What would be second soundtrack? What comes after that? There's a big jump between Saturday Night Fever and anything else.
I mean, funny enough, I watched the John Williams documentary, the music by John Williams, and it's like it's there's a lot of stuff on there which I love. Superman, I'd probably say Superman. Yeah. Or The Empire Strikes Back.
There must be another well-known music, like soundtrack. Like
Grease.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Original soundtracks, all I'm thinking of is like Jackie Brown or something.
Yeah. But the funny thing is Saturday Night Fever. But Saturday Night Fever had such a profound influence because if you sort of bought it as an album rather than a soundtrack album, every single track on it, the 17 tracks on it, are just fantastic. Yeah. And they serve the film.
Yeah.
The great thing is it's impossible to imagine, because you can listen to, it's impossible to listen to Staying Alive without seeing Travolta walk down the street. Yeah. It's impossible to look at Night Fever without that line dance. It's impossible to think of the two versions of More Than a Woman. Yeah. You have two cover versions. You have the original and the cover version. You've got like classical Night on Disco Mountain and stuff. You Should Be Dancing, Boogie Shoes. You hear a lot of them. The interesting thing is the only track that isn't on there is Jive Talking. I don't think that appears in the film. Now, of course, we've just had the release of Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers film. Now,
what, he directs this?
He didn't direct this, but the influence of John Badham can be seen in this, because in 1979, he did a version of Dracula with Frank Langella, who played it on stage. Just before Christmas, I met Julia Kruk, who's the chairperson of the official Dracula Society.
Okay.
What's she wearing? She have a cape?
So are they a Dracula fan club, or are these people Draculas?
No, literally, no. But this is the thing. I went to Harvester in Boston Manor, but I met this lady. Funnily enough, they're responsible for the Hamilton Dean archive. Now, Hamilton Dean was the co-writer of the original Dracula play that played in 1923 in Derby. And at the moment, there's a special initiative for Dracula in Derby. They're doing a special project getting together. But they've got all the original archives.
Right.
Now, this was the play was actually the source material for the 1979 film, watching Nosferatu, there's actually a lot of influence of the 1979 Dracula in that.
Oh, okay.
It's more literal. It sort of combines that.
I was surprised. I'd seen this couple of scenes. The lighting was very good. You know, it's like old school, but modern old school. Like
Well,
just
it's
a
a
candle
mixture of-
walking
but
through a room. It's like, oh, that's
but it's a mixture of suggestion, and there's great performances. Bill Skarsgård and Lily Rose Depp and Nicholas Hoult. I mean, it's a classical film, which I think is already gaining a lot of.
Did they film it in a certain way or frame rate or something? Because I saw a couple of scenes that weren't on the trailer. I saw the actual scene and I thought, why does that look really good?
Was it on film, maybe?
It
rather than digital.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah,
Well, a
that
lot
might
of.
be.
I mean, this is the thing this is why people are kind of. This is the interesting thing, is that a lot of people are going back to. They find that film is still providing, okay, it's all digital now. We're watching digital prints, but the thing is, there's a lot of films, people are still going back to the old formats.
Yeah. Hang on, you said something about meeting the head of
The chairperson of Dracula Society. So
you can't let that go.
Yeah,
It needs
but
some
she's
context
an
there,
interesting person, because it's
what do they do?
Well, it's celebrating Bram Stoker. It's celebrating the Dracula legacy. It's great,
More about scripts and bloodletting.
So, two other things from Dracula. Gilbert Taylor, who did the cinematography on The Omen and Star Wars, it was one of his versions, and John Williams did the music. I've actually got I bought an MCA soundtrack album of Dracula, and here's an interesting fact. John Williams, when I was reading the notes, John Badham invited John Williams to watch the film at his house. And he said that, and he confessed to John Badham he'd never seen a vampire movie. So it's quite interesting that, but the score's fantastic. So that's number 4. Okay, so my number 3 is Richard Donner. Now, of course, we've talked about
name.
Richard Donner. Superman.
We just talked about him.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So...
And Santa Claus the movie.
Oh, damn.
No, that was Janet Schwartz, director of Jaws 2 and Supergirl.
He did have some input though. I thought he did.
But I'm trying to remember now. I don't think he did on the Supergirl one. So Richard Donner, without question, was a television director. He was a former actor. Was encouraged by director Martin Ritt to become a director. He did things like The Twilight Zone. He did Peter Lawford and Sammy Davis Jr.'s Salt and Pepper. And then his first major release was The Omen.
Okay.
So this was a movie.
Was that 70s again, the Omen?
76.
Oh, the 70s.
So the thing is, Richard Donner, the thing, as I say, if The Omen probably had more influence on cinema, because, as I think I mentioned in a previous one, The Omen, the success of The Omen actually enabled Fox to take a chance on Star Wars.
Oh.
Because it was, also it was an event film. It was, but Richard Donner, again, he created a template with the horror genre, because, again, so let's just go over some old ground. The Omen is the original film. They had a film called The First Omen, which came out recently, which sort of came and went, which was well received. They wanted to do it more like the original film. Again, it's about the ambassador to Britain who sort of adopts a child, which he doesn't realise is the devil.
So the First Omen ends at the beginning of the Omen, doesn't it? Because she's having the kid at the end.
No,
because she doesn't. She
does the kid.
Yeah, so
In the Omen.
Yeah, because I think it's
but but then after that, isn't she driving somewhere? And there's
I don't know, because I get it's all a mush, because I've seen some of the sequels as well, and it sort of becomes a bit of a smush.
So
no, hang on. No, she does the kid in at the end of the first Omen. She does the kid in at the end, so that can't be the kid. But it is before the Omen.
Yeah,
film,
it is a prequel.
Yeah. Okay.
So of course, famous sequences. There's some fantastic sequences in it. There's so this is all spoilers. Got to get on it. The hanging of the nanny. The famous scene in the safari park. Yep, the safari park, which is with the baboons. Which again, the baboon, of course, which they said that they couldn't get it to work, but. To cut a long story short, the baboon handler says, you want to get these things going, stick a baboon in the car with Lee Remick. So there's a lot of things. Richard Donner was talking about the fact that when Harvey Stevens, a British actor, audition. He said, "I want you to attack me," and he sort of punched him in the bollocks, and he said, "Right, you're my Damien."
Right.
And then of course there's the decapitation scene, the famous one where, which is a wonderful visual effect, which actually was a clever thing of editing. Stuart Baird, who is the long-term collaborator of Richard Donner, and then of course there's the scene you're talking about where Lee Remick gets pushed out the thing. The scene where she actually is at the house and she falls off, which was done as a very clever visual effects. Like, it was, what they did was they did it against the wall, like the floor was against the wall, and actually Lee Remick was on a rotating thing, and she just threw down. And then, Alf Joint was the stuntman who did that fall. Okay. Of course, he then went on to do Superman, which again is the definitive template for all the films that came afterwards. I think, it still is a triumph of visual effects. It's a triumph of British visual effects because, people like Roy Field and Zoran Perisic, who developed the Zoptic process for the flying. You had like Derek Meddins, who did the cinematography. Jeffrey Unsworth was the cinematographer. Well,
so the effect for the flying was called a Zoptic?
It was called Zoptic.
Is that the name of a person?
Zoran Perisic was the guy who directed the Zoptic process because they were trying to develop things. And then, of course, it was, of course, down to Christopher Reeve's movement. Yeah. Because, there's... if you remember the scene where, he's gone to the Fortress of Solitude, and then you see him, the scene where he flies past the camera. The helicopter... rescue is, for my money, a wonderful fusion of visual effects because again, it's they use special matte shots, and then of course, there's lines. It's like a proper cliffhanger.
Yeah, I feel bad I didn't get to see it the first time when we didn't know. You know what I mean? Just to see all that for the first time.
He then, of course, did a fantasy film. The other films, there was this low budget film with John Savage called Inside Moves, which was $5 million, which sort of came and went. It was about paraplegics, which was made in 1981. He then did. The less said about one of the films that he did was a thing called The Toy with Richard Pryor.
Oh,
which was a dreadful film about a sport kid who basically is Jackie Gleason buys this kid.
Jackie Gleason's in it.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
He buys Richard Pryor.
He buys Richard Pryor, so it's incredibly. It would not be made today. It's on PC because it's.
Well, it was crass. I'm assuming it was crass at the time.
Well, it was crash at the time.
But what is Richard Pryor a toy?
Richard. Well, he's basically this kid sort of uses him as a. He sort of abuses him as a.
Tell me about the toy.
Richard Pryor is the toy.
No, tell me about the film.
He says, I want that. They said, you can get anything you want.
Who says what?
The dad to the kid.
And is Richard Gleason the dad?
And the kid says, I want that.
Him.
And points to Richard Pryor. No, that.
Oh.
And so
he points to Richard Pryor. And they buy
So basically, it's this kid abusing Richard Pryor. Unfortunately, it's very, very discriminating.
But what does Richard Pryor say about it in the film?
He kind of discovers. Yeah, he kind of discovers. You can hurt a friend. Blah blah blah. But less said about that. But in 1985, of course, he did The Goonies. So he directed The Goonies, which of course is, one of the best beloved films. Was released around the same time as Back to the Future. Did really well. And then, of course, he did the Lethal Weapon films. Oh. So he did all four of the Lethal Weapon films with Mel Gibson, who, of course, was bouncing back. He was back after an 18-month hiatus because I think he sort of decided to go on his farm on Australia. And then he's the four films are great. It was on TV the other day. Mel Gibson, with Donna's blessing, is going to be directing the fifth Lethal Weapon, which is the final Lethal Weapon. So they're all coming back.
And Danny Glover's still about?
Danny Glover's about.
And he's in it?
Yeah.
What's society-wise? What's going on with
Mel?
Where is he? Is he allowed? Is he?
He's still doing. I think he's kind of atoned for his sins, right. And I think, but the thing is, he's still a great director. I mean, he's, that's why I'm excited about the fifth Lethal when being directed by Gibson, because if there's anybody who knows how to direct action, he's done it well with Braveheart, Apocalypto, Hacksaw Ridge and stuff.
So is he back in now?
I think so. Okay. Well, he's getting there, but I think he's more of a
training
director.
Wheels on again. Okay.
So that's number 3.
Yeah, number 2.
Number 2, I actually was in a bit of a debate about who I should have as number 2 and number 1, but I had to switch it because I was, again, thinking about who I'd do. So Number 2 is John Carpenter.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was hoping for them.
So again, John Carpenter for me is, first of all, I defy anybody to think of any other director who's come up with so many great cult films. If you think of the output that he had between, we were talking about Dark Star before we came on, but if you think of the films he did between 1976 and 1986, you've got absolute, and even the films after that, you've got probably an enviable bunch of films that are absolutely enduring today, which are great. So you've got in 76, I saw Precinct 13, Halloween 1978, 1979, The Fog, 1981, Escape from New York, 1982, 1982, The Thing, 1985, Starman, 1986, Big Trouble in Little China. Every single one of them has become a classic amongst fans.
Isn't he one of the only people that does? He's got like the 4 quadrants. If he's a screenwriter, he does the scores,
Does the music, yeah.
director.
You know, he also
his father was a
his father was
something.
his father was from a Gabber was a music conductor.
Yeah, that was right.
And he learned how to. I mean, funnily enough, the Halloween theme was a rhythm that he was taught on the bongos.
Oh, really?
And again, it's, you know, I mean, again, the thing about it is he was a USC. I mean, actually, he's also won an Academy Award for a short film called The Resurrection of Bronco Billy in '69.
Really?
When he was a student at USC, he won. There was a film he did called The Resurrection.
That's what, directory?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, although apparently he was a little pissed off because the school, you know, they didn't go to the ceremony, and I think the school claimed the bloody award. But again, it's Dark Star before that. But for me, it's interesting because I never tire of watching, you know, Carpenter's films. I mean, I saw Precinct 13, which is actually a homage to his favorite director Howard Hawks, because he did things like The Thing, and it's a Rio Bravo, which is a classic John Wayne film.
I did hear at the beginning of the Thing, he made the studio pay them 2 weeks' wages to hang out together for 2 weeks, just to get that sort of the personalities to come out more before. But
it was, you know, it's sort of, you know, the funny thing, even The Substance, Coralie Fargett's film, I mean, you watch that and that's got the influence is still there. Yeah. You know, you know, we talked about, you know, my top 3 horror films were John Carpenter, The Halloween, The Thing, and The Fog.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
But
he's actually been doing concentrating on music.
Yeah, he tours. He's
really?
Basically like
Music.
tours.
I went to see him at the Troxy.
Oh, right.
And he's got a great band. I mean, he played all the hits and stuff.
He played all the hits.
He played all the songs, you know.
From the film?
From the film. So he played all the instruments.
On instruments?
Yeah. So he played Halloween, Escape from New York.
Oh, great.
It's, you know, you can look at all those movies. I mean, the other thing is a lot of those movies actually found an audience later. I mean, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, even Escape from LA, which is the sequel to it, is actually, when you watch it in the context, it's 2013, and Cliff Robertson plays a Trumpian type character.
What did John Carpenter have to do with that film?
He directed it.
New York.
Yeah, Escape
LA.
from LA.
Yeah.
So,
he directed
and he
that.
produced, he co-wrote it with Deborah Hill and Kurt Russell.
Did that not do well though? LA?
It didn't do all that well, but again, it's found its audience. You know, like the residuals. I mean, he also did a Elvis biopic called Elvis the Movie, which was released.
Who did they have in? They had someone interesting.
Kurt Russell. So
played Elvis. Didn't he?
So basically, Elvis the Movie was actually originally a 3-hour TV movie, and it was released theatrically in 1979 by GTO Films as a 2-hour film. I remember seeing it on TV on BBC One during Christmas '82. And actually, so the story goes, it was up against the likes of Gone with the Wind and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on American TV, and actually beat both of them. And all of a sudden, it became, you know, they shot in it. I mean, it was an incredibly long shoot, lots of setups, lots of stuff. Really, really good, worth seeing if you get a chance. It's on Blu-ray, I think, but well worth watching. Carpenter, for me, has so much. You know, I think when you look at other directors, I think the fact that he created so many interesting films. Christine, of course, I forgot to mention Christine, 1983 Stephen King novel. He was actually going to direct a version of Firestarter, but was fired by Universal before he did it. You know, Mark, that was done with Drew Barrymore afterwards. Somebody else directed that. It was around 1983, 84.
What was he fired for?
Well, because of the failure of The Thing.
Oh, right, okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, going back to my criteria was that, you know, when I think of repeat viewings, I think of the movies that had such an impact. I mean, when I was 13, I watched Halloween and Assault on Precinct 13 within a few months of each other. I was scared shitless by Halloween originally. But it's also the music. I mean, when I see Michael Myers going after Jamie Lee Curtis, but it's also the shadows. It's also the fact that there's implications and the fact that, you know, he goes to very dark places. So when you're actually watching when you're going into the dark house and you'll see, and the performances of Nancy Loomis and PJ Souls as the three girls, the chemistry between the three of them, and Donald Pleasance, who I think really offers a lot of resonance. I do like the sequels. Famous story is on Halloween 2, Rick Rosenthal was the director, but apparently what had happened was Rick Rosenthal had finished his print, and then John Carpenter and Universal didn't like his cut. So John Carpenter shot additional stuff just because he wanted to make more. So there's a few things in the version where there's needles through the syringes through the eye, and there's a scene with a kid who has a razor blade in his mouth and stuff. But again, the problem was it was more about the going catching up with the very things. You know, it's still an incredibly influential movie. It still has influence there. Of course, there were that recent Halloween reboots. Mm-hmm. I liked the very first Halloween reboot, which is the one it's assumed that nothing had happened. It was like the official John Carpenter return, and Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode, and I thought that was an interesting one. Yeah. Starman's very good, which is an alien film. Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen, beautiful love story about a widow who actually, she's lost her husband, and then basically the alien comes down and inherits Jeff Bridges, and they go on a road trip to the crater in Arizona, if I remember. But Carpenter didn't do the music. It was Jack Nish who did the music for An Officer and a Gentleman.
I hadn't seen the film, but I didn't know he filmed. I didn't know he was a director.
And it was also produced by Michael Douglas.
Oh, really?
Michael Douglas
produced,
yeah. Because, of course, Michael Douglas was the producer. He produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He also produced Romance in the Stone. He produced The China Syndrome.
Okay.
Which do you know The China Syndrome?
No.
So The China Syndrome was a film in 1979. It was actually based on a TV crew, and there's a nuclear power plant meltdown. The thing about it is 3 weeks after the film opened, 3 Mile Island had a fucking nuclear. So, of course, it elevated it. So The China Syndrome, the title, from what I understand, is actually a nuclear... when a nuclear core melts, it can actually go all the way through the Earth to China. That's what it's known. What's interesting about that movie, I know we're going off, but we'll get back to my number one in a minute.
I'm really worried about nuclear cores now.
No, but the thing about it is,
it's true,
but what's interesting about that film is, aside from the America Song Ventura Highway playing over the opening credits, there's no music whatsoever. And it's on TV like great movies and stuff.
The whole way through the film?
Yeah. Jack Lemmon plays the head of the power plants in there. Jane Fonda is the reporter. And Michael Douglas is the producer.
Oh. So he was acting and producing at the same time then?
Well, the thing is, he was on TV in the streets of San Francisco with Carl Malden.
That's quite strange to have that, to be doing both that well at the same time, like the acting and producing. Usually they come in...
The story of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is actually Kirk Douglas had the rights to the original stage play, and he wanted to play McMurphy, which went on to be that. So Michael Douglas took the rights and then produced it with Saul Zaentz, won his first Academy Award in 1975. It's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of the films that's won the Big Five.
Right. And that was a play first, was it?
It was a play, yeah, but it was also a novel based Ken Kesey's novel. So that's by the by. I just thought to mention it because we were talking about Michael Douglas on Starman.
So number one, what do you reckon he's going for? I think there might be a wild card one. I reckon. No, I don't know. I thought he might throw it because I can't think you'd put above John Carpenter. I thought maybe he might do a Quentin Tarantino
or a Scorsese or someone.
Oh, I reckon between the two of us.
Okay. So here we go.
Number one.
It's not Scorsese.
Oh, right.
It's not Tarantino. It's not Kubrick.
Go on, Charles.
Get him.
Well, Spielberg, but like,
No, I didn't.
Well, give that man an O level because
no, you did. I thought
so I had to. This is the thing that sort of I was thinking about. I was mulling over it this morning because I was thinking because originally I was going to put Carpenter at 1.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. It's like you've got to kind of think about.
But rewatchable films over Carpenter?
No, but
so give us a rundown of this Spielberg Higgins.
So I would safely say there's 5. Well, there's about 5 or 6 movies that I would point into that. So in no particular order, I picked Jewel, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the Sugarland Express.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. It sort of does, yeah.
But also as well, the reason why I'm putting Spielberg at the top is simply because Close Encounters of the Third Kind was the movie when I was 9 years old that actually sort of got me into filmmaking in a big way. It's the first film, along with Star Wars. I think Star Wars got me into movies, watching movies, but Close Encounters of the Third Kind, because again, it's a triumph of visual effects. There's some amazing things about it. But of course, with Jaws and Jewel, you get a sense that this is a guy who really is really good at what he does. He, Schindler's List and stuff, you have a filmmaker that's evolved as, even War of the Worlds, the 2005 version, I think, is a pretty good version of the adaptation. But they've never, I think they've done British versions, but I think
they did something recently. On
as
BBC.
an American version, I think the Tom Cruise thing and actually, the tripods and stuff like that. And it's a genuinely good thing. I mean, Jewel is a fantastic movie. It was originally a TV movie. It was released theatrically in Europe, including the UK. You watch, the kind of the visual ideas, the close-ups, the focus on the guys, Jaws, I think, it ushered in the blockbuster. It was the first of the major blockbusters in 1975, major releases across that.
And ruined swimming for an entire generation of
well,
people.
it was like showers in Psycho.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is you look at the fact that, you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, that is a triumph of success. I mean, it's a movie that's exciting. It's got, it's a modern adventure.
That's a
production
Hollywood
design.
film.
That's a Hollywood film, near perfect. I don't think the sequels. I wouldn't say that, although the sequels have got their own virtue and they all have good moments, then they don't hold a candle to Raiders. Sugarland Express, terrific movie with Goldie Hawn about a real life story about these two people trying to get their kid back.
Oh.
Which I saw. They did a screening at the. They did a screening down. I'm trying to remember where it was in Chiswick. I went to the Chiswick cinema. So yeah, I mean, make of it what you will. I mean, just wrapping up. The reason why certain filmmakers have not made it. I could talk about Hitchcock. I could talk about Tarantino. I could talk about, but I think every single filmmaker that you can think about. I mean, again. There will be people watching and thinking, well, I don't understand why he hasn't picked that. The truth is, this is my pick of.
I think you let it slip there when you said when I was 9, and I thought, oh, there's the stamp of that's the winning. It just got him.
But the thing is, with filmmaking, it's like, for example, Danny Boyle, for example, I think is a great director. I think David Lean, Stanley Kubrick. You can talk, but I think the thing with Scorsese, for example, is. I think he touches on a specific kind of film.
Yeah.
Tarantino, for example, there's a specific mandate. Of course, he pays homages to a lot of different films. But when you look at the films that we're talking about, I'm talking about George Lucas, for example, I think is more of a creator and producer. He actually was trying to create better tools for filmmaking. He wasn't really a director. He did films and he used his directing and he used the profits from Star Wars to build up this legacy of sound and things. So when you watch movies today, he is the most influenced. Star Wars was a revolution. But we're talking about directors. We're not talking about, with Hitchcock, for example, I could do a whole thing on my favorite Hitchcocks, North by Northwest and Psycho as well. And, Vertigo, Rear Window, there's a whole lot of, but I would probably have to watch more Hitchcock movies to get a real sense. You know, some of the early ones. You know, there are films I haven't seen of Hitchcock's things. You know, in terms of Peckinpah, for example, again, Peckinpah was a specific director. He was more interested in, you know, he was a very misogynistic filmmaker, you know, with things like Straw Dogs and The Wild Bunch. But his films are great. The Wild Bunch is fantastic. Straw Dogs is great. The Getaway is great. Convoy, I have a soft spot for. Yeah. You know, I could also pick, you know, that there's other directors. John McTiernan probably only did 2 decent movies. I actually met, he was a bit of a son. I mean, he did the London Action Festival, and he was quite reticent. He didn't want to talk. He goes, "Oh, I don't know." I mean, the famous line, there was a Q&A at the Predator, and the moderator said, "Well, what do you think about the Russo brothers being being influenced by?" And he goes, "I don't give a shit about any of them."
Jesus Christ.
So we were all kind of like, "Oh, wow, bloody hell!"
I can see the Coen brothers being on part of the list.
I would. I mean, again, another thing. Yeah. Again, you know, I think people watching this now, they, you know, as I said to you earlier before we started, to say, have a think about it. Have a think about what your favorite director, because everybody's. I mean, I'm not. There's no right or wrong choices. And I just felt that, you know, in terms of, there's other directors like Peter Hyams, you know, Capricorn 1, Outland, Time Cop, Sudden Death. I like Peter Hyams. He did Running Scared as well with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines. John Sturges, The Magnificent Seven, you know, The Eagle Has Landed, The Great Escape, which my father went to the world premiere back in 1963.
Oh, right.
He was actually in the RAF as in the Queen's Colour Squadron, and so he told me he was stationed at RAF Uxbridge, and they were looking for volunteers to stand guard, and he actually went to the premiere. Oh, yeah. And he actually has still got the ticket and the program.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I feel cheated by Spielberg. I feel like he died about 5 or 6 years ago, and he stopped making films with the Avatar stuff. And I'm sort of waiting for him to come back.
That's James Cameron.
That's Cameron.
Oh, hang on. Cameron.
Spielberg.
Again, so what's Spielberg's last film? Terminate? No,
Spielberg's last film was The Fabelmans and West Side Story.
How far back? He did
last 2 years.
He did Terminator.
No, that was James Cameron.
Jesus Christ!
But
so
again,
James Cameron then.
Okay, so so another one. I mean, I could also add things like George Miller, but again, George Miller's more specific with Mad Max. Mm. Peter Jackson with the Lord of the Rings films, and again, he's done things like, I mean, Heavenly Creatures is a fantastic movie, but again, he did Babe, he did Happy Feet. So but I think
what I've got gaps with my James Cameron films. So the Terminators, what has he done going back?
Okay, so he started in 1982 directing a thing called Piranha 2: The Spawning,
right,
which was actually which again he kind of he was.
And it was the second one, wasn't it? Or was it the first one?
So he started as a protege for Roger Corman.
Oh, right.
And he actually did the visual effects on a thing called Battle Beyond the Stars, which was a Magnificent Seven in outer space, produced by Roger Corman in 1981. Right. Has a fantastic score by James Horner. It had George Peppard, Robert Vaughn, had Sybil Danning as Saint Exmin, the Valkyrie.
What's the sci-fi? He did another sci-fi one, didn't he? With he had some input. I think it was assistant director or something. It was
James Cameron.
Yeah. Oh, God. It's going
Galaxy of Terror.
Galaxy of Terror. That's it.
which was actually
with the slug rape.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I didn't want to.
But again, he then went.
Slug that rapes a lady.
So the story goes, he was in Rome starving, and essentially had this vision of a robot coming through the fire. Then wrote the script. Hemdale took it over.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay.
And then, of course, he did. He then got writing commissions on Rambo: First Blood Part 2 and Aliens. Then he directed Aliens, that did well. And then he did The Abyss. Then he did Terminator 2, True Lies, Titanic. Then he's doing the Avatar thing. Okay. The rumor is that he's actually going to be doing a new version of Fantastic Voyage.
Oh,
which is an update, which has been around for a while. So, in the original film, it was about removing a tumor from a scientist. This one's World War III in the bloodstream. That's the story I've heard. But Cameron, it's a science fiction thing.
That sounds quite joke. Well, Say it again. World War Three in the
World War III in the bloodstream. So it's a bit like remember Inner Space.
Yeah, but that's a comedy.
Yeah, but this is.
How can you not have that as a comedy then? As World War
Well,
III?
it's Cameron being serious. I don't know. I mean,
So then James Cameron, I feel cheated by. I feel like his talent's on hold while he makes these bloody blue people film.
That make all the money, but no one really cares
so
about.
what's going on, John?
Okay, so I'm sorry, James, if you're watching this.
Yeah.
I've never forgiven you for unobtainium.
Yeah,
I just can't. The thing about it is,
an in-joke.
The funny thing is the other thing is in the first Avatar, it said, I'm an energy field created by all living things. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this ain't Tatooine, it's bloody Pandora. I admire James Cameron. I think, to be honest with you, James, if you're watching, I admire your talents as a filmmaker. I think you're great. You've created some great stuff. And don't come after me. I just think it's wasted talent. but the thing about it is, the other ones would say Francis Ford Coppola is not on there. Yeah. I mean, again, The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. But again, it's fits and starts. I love the Godfather films. I mean, The Godfather 2 is probably my favourite film of all time.
And The Conversation.
I love The Conversation. But again,
we were saying before you get here, I was incredulous to find out that the producer here hasn't seen either of the Godfather films. Think of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just started, the first one the other day. I will finish it.
Imagine getting to see it for the first.
So what? Just out of interest, are there? Funny enough, I saw 8.5 over Christmas, the Fellini film. God, bloody hell! How the fuck that's a classic? I don't know. It's like a producer's. It's like a producer's psycho evaluation. It's a producer trying to create a film. And I sat there in the. I watched it at the Prince Charles, and I was like, "Oh, God, what the fuck is this?" So just going back to what you're saying. So you haven't seen The Godfather 1 or 2?
No.
Are there other films? We've been talking about a lot of them today. What other films would you say of what we've been talking quite a lot? What are the other films that you're kind of interested to know about?
Well, no, it's kind of funny. You both sort of hit the nail on the head like instantly after I thought it. So you were talking about, this top 5 is my sort of list. And I was sort of thinking if I could to ask you right before it was said too, I thought, okay, well, if this is your top 5, then probably your 6 through 10 will be, Kubrick or
I would probably no. What I'm inclined to do that, but again, my thing about it is that I'm reflecting on 45 years of film watching.
Yeah,
and again, these are the movies that visually and mentally have had the most impact. I think when you talk to filmmakers, when a lot of filmmakers when they do that big thing, where did it all come from? And you say, well, like. I was at home with my mum and dad and we were watching. Look at Wicked. Wicked is going to inspire a whole bunch of new people to be filmmakers. It's
Wicked?
Wicked, the new Wicked movie, which is fantastic.
Yeah? Okay.
Because I think, but again, it's like Flash Gordon, like everybody has a moment watching a movie on the big screen where you sit there and you're thinking, this is Spielberg talks about the greatest show on earth. It's a moment in The Fabelmans. He's talking about the kid the story goes. He's going to see the greatest show on earth, but of course his father said, "I'm going to take you to see a circus," and of course he didn't realize. He goes, "Well, where's the ring? Where's the stuff?" And then he got drawn into it, and then of course he started playing with his train set and creating, using the Super 8 camera. Oh. George Lucas famously became a filmmaker based on the fact that he had an accident in a car. He was a racer, and so the story goes. He had a major accident near his house. And of course, he spent his time watching, then decided to go to university and study, and then he became interested in film per se.
But what's the link between the crash and filmmaking?
No, that was it. It was his moments of clarity. Blimey, he could have died.
Oh, well,
the fact that he didn't die, he went on like that. And so
his life went in a different direction.
So it's like there's a lot of interesting stuff that So I hope today. It's giving you food for thought. I hope I've given you a very constructive look at the 5 filmmakers. Again, the other thing is my top 5, or there's other directors that I've seen films over the years. My Billy Wilder, for example. We could talk about some like It's Hot. We could talk about his output, Double Indemnity, Sunset Boulevard. You could talk about Mel Brooks, comedy and stuff. But again. They're filmmakers that are.
I just listened to it, and it just the other day it was Laurence Olivier. Yeah, he was the director, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah.
He said when he was working with Marilyn Monroe, he was talking about working with her, and he said he just had he couldn't get her to do anything. He said she was always late. She could not be on time for anything, and they had to build it into the system that she was always going to be hours late. With like everyone.
Well, they
waiting.
had I mean, there's famous stories like Jack Lemmon was talking about some like art where she. You know, she was very insecure, couldn't face the shots. I mean, Hitchcock family said, you know, he said, I want to treat, you know, we got to treat actors like cattle. It was some famous thing.
Because he said about her, he said he had a moment where he realised what the problem, because he said he could not get her to act. She was always forgetting her lines. He said she didn't want to learn the lines, and he said whatever she did just came out as Marilyn Monroe being her off screen. The same. He said she couldn't act, and he said he suddenly realised she doesn't want to be here. She's a model. He said when you put the camera on her, it just all worked. Yeah. But if she had to do stuff and work with other people, it fell apart. He said, I realised she's a model. She doesn't want to act. It's just not there in her.
One final one before we wrap up. I would, of course, incline to add Clint Eastwood. You know, I think, again, he's done, you know, for my money, again, I will be more than happy to talk about Clint Eastwood. We've mentioned him before anyway. But again, he's, you know...
I saw Richard Jewell the other day. That's a great... I wasn't expecting that. That's fantastic.
Well, I saw Juror number 2, the latest one.
Richard Jewell.
Yeah, it's about the guy, it's about the bomber, and he kind of... It's an interesting tale where he's sort of part of the bombing thing, and he sort of becomes...
He's a security guy, yes.
Security guard.
What's it called?
Richard Jewell.
That's the name of the film?
Yeah. He was a security guard at the Atlanta Olympics, and he discovered a pipe bomb and helped evacuate people.
A concert or something.
It was a concert to do with the Olympics.
And then people
did die, but he found it, and it would have been a lot worse.
And the whole crux of the thing is that he becomes accused as possibly the dilemma.
Right.
Juror number 2, must mention, this is the last thing, is great courtroom drama. Nicholas Hoult plays a juror who basically knows something about the case, and Toni Collette's in it. Really great, really great. I mean, Eastwood, apparently it's his last film, his film, but although you can take it or leave it, because, you know, I'm sure Eastwood's, you know, you're not going to tell Eastwood to finish off anyway.
What years did The Good, the Bad and the Ugly come out?
1967.
And he's still about making.
I could also add, there were talking about again John Woo, Sergio Leone. You know, there's a whole variety of, you know, we could talk about international directors, Guillermo del Toro. We could talk about, you know, Thomas Alfredson. You know, the guy that's, you know, there's British directors. There's international directors. You could talk about some of the Indian directors, Satyajit Ray, other directors from Australia, Fred Sapishi, Peter Weir.
Is there anybody on the way up that you say, watch this person? I've seen a couple of good films. I've got a couple under the belt now.
I mean, I still am reserving judgment on Christopher Nolan because I think he's done some good films, but again, there's a part of me that wants to see something more from him.
I watched Tenet twice again.
Haven't seen it.
It was on telly. I watched it twice because I'm starting to understand it a bit more.
But there's one moment in it. There's one moment in it where you can't. There's John David Washington and somebody having a line. We can't bloody hear the dialogue.
Oh, really?
That is one of them.
There's a moment in the film, and I was struggling because I saw it in IMAX, and I was like, what the fuck did he just say? And they even pointed it out. Other people picked up on it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll end on this. But it just dropped my brain when I watched the Laurence Olivier thing. He said he worked with Dustin Hoffman, and he said it was in the early days.
So the famous story. So the famous story of this. The famous story of this is basically it's Marathon Man, Dustin and what it was Dustin Hoffman says that he'd been up 3 days, and then Laurence Olivier says, "My dear boy, why didn't you just try acting? It's so much easier." But Dustin Hoffman then said the reason why he was up for 3 hours was he went to bloody Studio 54.
Oh yeah,
that was the other thing he said. So yeah.
I love that though. Why don't you just learn to act? You
don't
come in. I haven't slept.
Don't have to stick pins in yourself. No, you just pretend.
Right, well, listen, John, you've done us proud once again.
Thank you very much.
Incredible. What are you off to today? What are you doing today?
I'm going to enjoy my make the most of the weather.
You're always around the Prince Charles. I always notice you're always there.
Yeah.
Is it? It doesn't specialise in anything. It just plays older movies.
Okay, so my promotion thing, the PrinceCharlesCinema.com, is fantastic cinema. You can get a lifetime membership for either £60 or £100. They do great screenings. Check the program; it's fantastic.
And what are you getting discounts for that?
You
membership?
get two if you get a membership,
Yeah.
with lifetime, you get 2 discounted tickets with 100, which is the one up, and you get life thing. I mean,
What do you mean 2 discounts with 100? What 100 what?
let me just show you. That's the lifetime membership kit.
Okay.
So yeah,
What's that? Not the thing. What's it called?
That's They Live.
They Live. That's
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so what it is they'll give you, you get like you get £1 member screenings. You get like discounts on your bloody chocolate and stuff. But it's a great atmosphere. I mean, they show 70mm. I went.
Is that where you go to see The Exorcist when that comes out every?
Well, they do
millimeter?
an all-night horror marathon, so they'll show the Exorcist chainsaw thing. Well worth doing. If you're in London, go check it out. I'm sure you probably know of it. If you're outside London or elsewhere and globally, come and. It's in Leicester Square, literally about 2 minutes from the station.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah. Lovely, John. That was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
So, what month are we in now? January. Beginning of the year. Anything coming up? What we got? So we got the 28 years later. Got Superman.
Let me think about what the next one's going to be because I'm.
But what films do you know are coming up this year? What's on the?
Well, I mean, I'll have to check the schedule, but what I'll do is I'll let you know.
Summer blockbusters.
Yeah. Okay.
Charles. Favourite movie moment from your life? Is there any film that can you remember? John had his moment at 9 years old seeing what's it called? I remember The Thing. That sticks to me.
Yeah.
I remember ITV on a Friday night. Next on ITV, The Thing.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Watching Neil Breen's Fateful Findings for the first
What's all
time.
this?
Okay.
What's that?
Truly bizarre film.
How old were you? 14?
30 something.
30?
Yeah, it's a few years
So your
ago.
favourite movie moment was
One
only
of them, because it's just utterly confusing, and I just was going, "What?" I mean, my friend was like, and we started having a discussion about what actually a film was.
Oh God! Right?
Like, is this a film? Does this classify as a film? I don't. Yeah.
Okay. We'll quickly throw it out to the audience. What's your favourite film, Sean?
Favorite film?
Yeah, one of.
I don't know.
What comes to mind?
Well, I mean, I know it's a shame that I haven't seen Godfather, but
Yeah.
to be honest with you, Goodfellas is
but
probably
of the films, I mean, it's obviously you must have seen some films. Now give us one.
Well, Goodfellas.
yeah, Goodfellas.
Okay.
Love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, what's your favourite? We've gone to the audience.
Knight, Christopher Nolan all the way. Thanks.
So, are you talking about which? Are you talking about all the films or the?
The Dark Knight, the second one. Yeah.
Oh, the fantastic.
Yeah.
Is that the one everyone with?
That's the one with the joke. Why so serious?
Yeah, I haven't seen.
But it's brilliant. I love that one. I do like the opening of Dark Knight Rises with that plane crash. Crashing this plane with no survivors. I feel sorry for the guy that leaves when he goes, "No, brother, they expect one of us in the wreckage. Have we started the fire? Yes, the fire rises."
Oh yeah.
Quickly, I haven't seen
mentioned
Batman
Bane.
versus Superman. Right? How does Batman beat Superman up? How are they fight? I know he's got a big suit on.
He doesn't.
Oh, he doesn't.
We
No,
don't.
not
Don't they have a fist fight?
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about how that is. I think it's DC desperation.
He's Superman. He just fly through him because they're
Yeah.
done. Okay.
Yeah.
It was not
Because he's not trying to fight.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
just saying, "Look, we need to not fight."
Oh,
And
no.
Batman's just going like, chucking loads of
Right,
spears at
okay,
him.
Right
cool.
then. Well, thank you very much, John, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers,
Thank you
thank
for joining us. Bye-bye.
Lovers' whispers in the midnight air. Promises we made without a care. In the shadows where our dreams entwine.